Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
what's up, man? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Joe. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. Where are you located today?
I'm in Queens, New York. How
Right
about
on.
yourself?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Nice. I've been wanting to visit, but it's been like we've pushed that trip several times over. So I want to visit Kansas City. I want to visit St. Louis. I want to visit a few Midwestern states.
Okay. Yeah. It's surprising. Kansas City's one of those, it's a really good arts and music hub that I don't think people realize until they get. I mean, of course, we got Mahomes and we got the football and we got,
Hmm.
but other than that, we got a lot going on here. So it's all good.
That's awesome.
But
Definitely
it's
in my
great
in
to,
my checklist.
what's that?
I said it's definitely in my checklist of
Yeah.
places to go.
Right on, man. Well, I have my dad was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island, so I have, familial roots up there.
Nice.
Um, I don't know that I've ever been to Queens, but the last time I was in New York, it was before the towers came down in the
Oh,
late 90s, and I remember, seeing the majesty and all of that. So it's
yeah, it's changed quite a lot since then. It's
oh man. Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, I imagine so. Well, man, it's great to meet you, and I want to kick our conversation off with what we've all lived through for the last 3.5 years or so, which is COVID. How did you get through that time period, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because in advertising, I've been in advertising for over 10 years now. A lot of things were already done, like somewhat virtual, although you're in office, like most meetings are kind of like on Zooms anyway. So it did change certain aspects of the way that we work because obviously you're not getting that face time with your team. You're not able to assess really what the client needs because we went through like the pandemic and now we went through a lot of difficulties with that time through that time on like meeting in person into meetings and stuff. But I think that it affected us the most in like the changes with app technology, right? So we had the TikTok. I was in TikTok during that time, and the increase on in ad revenue was massive, right? I think that was 2020 going into 2021. It was probably the biggest ad revenue year that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
So um, because we were all hooked to our TVs and at home, we were, consuming a lot more content. So that was a massive change because of COVID. I feel like COVID did that. Also, take the upcoming of TikTok, the growth of it. I think that helped its growth just because the pandemic we were all at home and people were glued to their phones and TVs more than usual.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me get to the essence of what you do for a living. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I guess I would say I persuade people to purchase products, right? So my goal is to put the right ad to the right viewer, right? So ensuring that we're targeting the right audience. So, for example, I wouldn't even know how I would explain that to a third grader, but like the goal is to maximize audience. So if you're looking for a bike, I want to make sure that you're the one that gets that BMX commercial.
I gotcha. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
A baseball player.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have very early memories of me. I actually still have my baseball card book, and I used to draw myself with an actual Yankee jersey. So yeah,
nice. Nice. Yeah,
yeah,
I saw the Yankees yesterday. I believe it was it. I don't remember seeing them when I was a kid, but I saw them yesterday. Their final game was in Kansas
yeah.
City. And man, there's a lot of Yankee fans out there. I couldn't believe how many people on that team I didn't recognize. And they didn't play Judge.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no, at this point, it's kind of like the season is done for. So
yeah.
that's the point. Yeah.
I will tell you one thing though. I told my wife when I was there. I said, I know we have problems in Kansas City, but we don't have the problems the Yankees have because it's
Oh no.
bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's really bad. It's really bad. We're missing George Steinbrenner for sure.
Yeah. It's I actually when I was a kid, my favorite team was the Mets. And I covered a press event with Dwight Gooden. He was my hero growing up. I loved Doc.
Yeah, he
And
was
I
amazing.
and I met him. And I saw an interview with him, I kind of had in the afterglow of meeting him, and he talked about how much he loves Steinbrenner and how a lot of people had an allegiance to him. And he was kind of a
Yeah.
magnet for criticism and positivity also, but I think at the end of the day, he really did kind of keep things going in the right direction all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he had that, like, you knew that this wouldn't have happened
Right.
during the time. A lot of people would have been let go. A lot of changes would have happened
Uh-huh.
immediately. So yeah,
So
that's
if you could go back in the history of baseball, maybe more specifically the Yankees, and see anything in baseball with your own eyes, what would you love to have seen?
hmm. I would have loved to see that. I think it was 2009 World Series. That A-Rod home run
Yeah.
against the
Yeah.
Phillies. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Um, I've been lucky because I lived in New York most of my life. As a Yankee fan, I get a lot of chances to actually see them in person, and the ability to. When I was a kid, I grew up in the Bronx, so my building was facing Yankee Stadium, and I was able to see the
Wow.
stadium from my rooftop. So we would just go up there and catch games and stuff. So yeah, I was a little spoiled.
That's wild, man. I really, really was going through my brain yesterday because the big thing for me yesterday was it's probably Zach Greinke's last game.
Oh
And
yeah, that's another one.
so it was really cool to be out there and to see it, but I just kept thinking about the history of the Yankees and just they've always had a powerful team and how I recognized nobody on the team yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's it's funny because I feel like aside from Judge and Stanton, you don't really know many Yankees.
Uh-uh.
Like they're not really superstars. They are like stars, but they're just not superstars yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
But
I
they're
think baseball in general, there's a lot of new players, a lot of great players, but
uh-huh.
I don't recognize a lot of them anymore.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's get to the beginnings of your life. Where were you born and raised, and how were these seeds put into you to get into advertising and marketing and digital media?
So to start off, I was born in Dominican Republic. We got here about I was 8 years old when we arrived to New York. Lived up in the Bronx. I went to school out there. I didn't have the best um couple of friends, so I used to get into a lot of trouble. I was one of those kids that I actually got my GED. I wasn't even able to finish high school. Uh, Baseball was the reason for me to even get accepted to a school because I played baseball outside of school and I was pretty good at it. So a school in Long Island called SUNY Farmingdale took a look and they liked I was lefty. I was a pitcher mostly. I played pitcher and right field, pretty decent arm. So they gave me a chance and I went out there and I graduated there with a business administration degree. That said, I didn't know what to do with my degree, so I was just taking jobs. I also had a child right before I graduated college, so I was a single father at 21, 22, going on 22. Um, so that changed. I was like in survival mode at that point, right? So I was just kind of taking on any sort of role that came across my screen, and career builder at the time I think was the go-to uh, job board. And yeah, I found a few roles, didn't really like it. I did finance for a while. It was just extremely boring for me. I just couldn't like enjoy it. And then I ran into a role over in a company called Screen Vision, which what they do is that they manage they own the rights to the ads that come into like in movie theaters, so the
Yeah.
pre-rolls, right? So the pre-roll ads. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed like looking at the data, analyzing what audiences we were going to target for a specific client. Like just looking at all that stuff, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I never thought that this actually happened. I see the ads running. I just didn't know how it actually happened. So I really enjoyed that. And after that, I was able to join another company called Interactive One, which owned Global Grind, iWon, the TV One, iWon, and a few other companies. So I was able to be there for a short period of time. And then my big break was really when I was able to join the New York Times.
Okay.
So, so I handle the political campaigns, I handled the book campaigns, and I handled tech as well.
Okay. So who have been heroes for you in your life?
Heroes, I would have to say my mother. obviously, as a single parent, just coming to a different country and trying to figure it all out. It takes a really brave soul to do something like that, especially with two kids. That we were not the easiest to handle. Two boys.
Yeah.
So that's one. My brother as well. My brother is actually a physician. He's a child abuse pediatrician over in Atlanta, Georgia. He was really the person that, no matter how far away I strayed into the streets and into like trouble, I knew that my brother's doing this, so I'm capable of doing much more than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, someone that's an inspiration to you, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Ooh, there's so many. I would have to say Paul O'Neill has always been. He's a Yankee player.
Yeah.
Has always been my favorite player, and I say him just because of his passion, right? Like when he played, he was just, everybody
Man.
saw him screaming. He was angry, and
Yeah.
like,
He
he
was
was just,
fiery.
yeah, he was just always like on it. And even if they were winning by 10, if something happened that he felt like it was wrong, like you could see that he was very passionate about the game. That's one of the things that I feel like they're missing now, and that's one of the things that you need in order to just make a company like grow and to get to a specific place. You need that fire and that passion. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions.
He was the most deceptive baseball card because I used to look at his card and he just looked like this docile, tall dude.
Yeah,
But when you
yeah,
saw him, man, he was on it. He was
yeah,
fiery,
yeah.
you know?
And he was just like good arm, solid player, like
Yep.
protected his players. It was just a really good teammate. It seemed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. You want him on your side. That's
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely. Him and Daryl Strawberry for sure.
Oh yeah, forget about it. Yeah, and that was one of the things I saw, that 30 for 30 on the 86 Mets. Man, those guys were gonzo, but they had each other's backs and they just made it
Yeah,
happen, you know?
yeah, exactly. That's how they got there.
That's
It
it.
was an amazing run
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
was for sure. So, of all of the things that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of?
The proudest, it was like taking the chance on my business. I started a ad agency called called Consulting Group, and what we do is that we pretty much brought the same strategies that big brands use and kind of give that same strategic focus on like the mom and pop e-com clothing lines, and just smaller companies that are not getting that specific knowledge or even access to kind of that kind of agency.
So, you kind of mentioned, growing up and, having bad influences and whatnot. I'm curious if you were to have a dream tonight and run into a younger version of yourself, say in your 20s, early 20s, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what would you tell that young version of you?
One of the things that I've learned throughout the course of my 38 years here around the sun, it's really consistency is key. I feel like in anything, I play baseball. I did a little bit of mixed martial arts. I've done quite a lot, and I felt like I was never really consistent. Once I started being consistent, that's really when I started kind of growing as a person and really getting to new heights. Because as humans, we kind of stop when we feel uncomfortable, right? Like, so it's just going through that, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to mess up and push through it.
Yeah, for sure. So, as somebody that helps place products and helps people make choices from a business standpoint, what's the most impressive marketing company? What's the most impressive company that's marketed their wares to people that you've been inspired by or that you've always thought, man, they have it down?
There's so many. I think Fear of God is a clothing line. They done very very well. I think Tesla does a great job. They have a marketing uh, team behind them
Yeah.
with Musk being the CEO there. But I would say Fear of God. I like Nike has been amazing with everything that they drop. Um, Asics actually has been surprising me lately with a
Yeah.
lot of how they're dropping their marketing. Um, yeah, I think those Fear of God, I just like because they were able to kind of like assess the market and they realized that they were at a higher price point, so they created another brand based on that, and that other brand is geared towards a lower value market. So
Did you see that movie about them, how they netted Michael Jordan at Nike?
yes, hi, how are you?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an amazing movie.
yeah. I mean, I remember seeing that in the documentary about Jordan, where they said that everybody was at Converse. He was the one guy that broke free. He didn't want to be with Nike, and his mom just told him, get on the airplane, just go and see what they got. And just to see
Hmm.
how that unfolded, because I remember when I was younger, I was a runner. I remember they were a running shoe. No one
Yeah.
thought of them as anything else, you know? So it's amazing how those companies like that, they could have just stayed a running shoe company. But you know what?
And
It's
they would
that
have been
whole
fine.
idea of taking the risk, man, taking the
Yeah,
leap, see what happens,
totally.
and then you get in there and you do it, you know?
Totally. It's okay to fail. That's one of the things that I've actually learned in advertising. Like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake and just keep going.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, you know, a lot of people perceive me as very calm. I'm someone that I have my hands on a lot of different things with the advertising company. Uh, I'm a family man, so I have 3 kids. I also have a podcast as well. It's called the Innovators Den, which we bring different innovators from the tri-state area, and we discuss their stories, get feedback to people that are coming up, and just different ways to ignite the brain to start something, right? So I'm constantly touching a lot of these things, and it might seem like I'm just level-headed, but sometimes I'm just in my own head, plotting on the next move or trying to figure out how to get started, just because I go through spurts of like productivity.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to hear your podcast, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
You can first my Instagram, my personal Instagram is formerly known as hashtag. So they can find my personal Instagram there. You can also follow the Innovators Den on Instagram and on YouTube. We're also on TikTok and all the other platforms as well. Apple Podcasts, if you want to listen to it there, and iHeartRadio, etc.
So I kind of extolled the virtues of Kansas City. What's the best thing about living in Queens?
The best thing about living in Queens is that it's a melting pot. You can literally find anything, any type of cuisine. If you want to learn a different language, you can probably learn it here. Any language in the world, you can probably learn it here in Queens. There's just a variety of different cultures, um, and it's probably one of the, I think, in the world, it's probably the city with the biggest uh, level of different races, cultures, and stuff like that. So that's the best thing about living here.
That's the thing I always love about going to the coasts and going to big areas. I love that diversity, because along with that
Mhm.
diversity, you get the food and you get all the accoutrements that come with that, you know?
Yeah. It's like it's awesome. It's awesome to experience. Like you don't have to go too far either. Like I'm a few blocks. I'm over by the airport, JFK. I'm probably 10 minutes away, and there's like a West Indian community
Yeah.
that it's literally all type of West Indian food. You can find Jamaican food, you can find Guyanese food, you can find Trinidadian food. Like you can find all of those
Yeah.
things 10 minutes from my house. So, and the same goes for Italian. I'm right here. This is an Italian community. So,
Wonderful. So what football team do you root for?
surprisingly, not one that you would think. I root for the Raiders over
Okay.
in Vegas now.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know when in New York what the allegiance is, whether you go for the Giants or the Jets, where you have to be. How does all that work?
It depends. It just depends on the person. I think I grew up either watching the Giants, but I used to play Madden growing up. So I was a big gamer. So when I used to play Madden, the Raiders growing up were the team to pick as far as like
Yeah.
defense. So I started liking them because of the game, and that's when I started watching their games.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the Jets, man, after last night's game, because it was like I
Yeah,
mean, but I got to tell you, on the receiving end of things, we've watched the Chiefs do that for the last couple of years, just weird calls,
that's true.
and then the
Yeah.
game's over with. But I feel bad because that coach for the Jets seems like a really grounded cat, and I feel bad,
Hmm.
because you just,
Yeah, that was a rough one.
yeah, it's just like you're just one or two hairs away, because they were hitting
Hmm.
passes, the
Yeah.
crowd was into it, it was going, and
Yeah,
then
no, it was looking good.
yeah.
And then it happens, you know. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, hey, it was great. Thank you for your story. It was great to get to know you. Thanks for opening up and being on the show, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.